Whether you guys been trucking out of these states or if you've been hauling freight out of these states, here are the top 5 best states to do trucking with. Hello guys, I'm Eddie V. Welcome to the channel. I've been trucking for almost 4 years, and I can tell you right now the top 5 states to do trucking with, whether the freight is high, whether the freight is low. And these are the best areas that you're probably guaranteed almost to never get stuck with. I know I had very little trouble of getting stuck in these states to haul freight. So let's continue with the list. Let's start with number 5. Number 5 is the state of Pennsylvania. Now you guys may be wondering why I put it down so low at number 5. Well, it's because I really hate that state. It's 65-mile-an-hour speed limits, 55-mile-an-hour speed limits for miles away from a big city. You got icy road conditions, you got bad weather conditions, you got mountains there, and you got the very dangerous city of Philadelphia, which is hard to move your truck in through when you're driving trucking. But why is it at number 5? Why did it even make the list? Because back a couple years ago, I made a video where Pennsylvania is one of the worst states to do trucking with, but it was based not on freight, it was based mainly on the weather and road conditions, because they don't really do a good job as the other states. But why is it number 5? Well, because you can haul freight out of there. Whether you're doing step deck, flatbed, oversized load, RGN, reefer, dry van, tanker, you name it, Pennsylvania actually has freight. They have local jobs, which is Philadelphia and other cities, and they got freight. When I did dry van, I had freight. When I did step deck, I had freight. Either you haul metal out of there or you haul dry goods. There's always a good paying load coming out of there usually, if you know which lane to run. The best lane to run actually is north and south. So if you take a load of Pennsylvania, you can drop it down to Georgia or South Carolina, North Carolina, and come back way up to Pennsylvania again. That's a really good lane. A lot of trucking companies run those lanes, and I ran one myself, and there was almost always freight. Very rarely would I have to wait a whole night or a couple days to wait for freight. Yes, some freight was actually cheap. But if you stick around long enough, you'd find pretty good, decent moving freight all over the country to pick up from Pennsylvania that pays decently good. Number 4, guys, we got North Carolina. And you guys might be surprised, why is the Carolinas in the mix here? Because the next one is going to be surprising too. So number 4 is North Carolina. Why? Because I've never gotten stuck there. I live in South Carolina myself, and when I did step deck, I would often hop to Charlotte, North Carolina, pick up a good paying freight. I've done step deck for nearly 3 years, and I've always had picked up good freight coming in North Carolina. Got to think about it. They make CAT equipment in North Carolina. I picked up excavators, I picked up skid steers, I picked up these small looking backhoes. You name it. I picked up a lot of construction equipment. I even picked up brand new trash dumpsters that are being sent all over the United States from North Carolina. North Carolina has a lot of good freight, and depending where you're at, it's either flat or mountains, and the fuel is cheaper compared to the previous state. The fuel is actually very expensive down there. In North Carolina, they got cheaper fuel, they got great truck stops, and you can park, like say, at a business, and they usually won't bother you, but you just got to be careful. But there's always moving freight. The only reason why it's not higher than the next one on the list is because the DOT officers can be shady sometimes. I mean, they never bothered me there, but they do not like containers. They do not like some trucks that speed. I mean, no one does, but they really take it to the letter if you break a law in North Carolina. But other than that, the freight there is really good. I often picked up loads in North Carolina that went all the way to California that for owner-operators with gross miles, it paid $3 a mile gross to the owner-operator. So North Carolina is a very, very good state to pick up freight. Number 3, guys, we have South Carolina. You guys might be surprised. Here you guys probably wondering, well, I live in South Carolina. You guys may be like, well, you live in South Carolina, you're just trying to promote your state. No, that's not true. Actually, there's some things I don't like about South Carolina. But believe it or not, South Carolina has a very good place to pick up freight. We got very good warehouses and companies. We have Komatsu, we have BMW, we have Volvo, we have Michelin, and we have a lot of tanker terminals, and we can pick up freight and deliver it. There's a lot of local opportunities in South Carolina. I have picked up freight in South Carolina. It took me all the way to Colorado. I have picked up freight that moved me only a couple states, but overall, it usually paid good. And the fuel sometimes here, guys, your diesel is actually cheaper than Texas. We're very similar to Texas for some reason. Either it's the low taxes or something, but we're very similar to Texas. Sometimes we're actually cheaper than Texas. We're only a few cents off from Texas. That's what I like about South Carolina. South Carolina, the only thing that you might have to worry about here is the rednecks. But other than that, the scale houses are almost always closed, and the freight is readily there. If there is no freight, you got neighboring states like Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, and Florida, but you can't really pick up much out of Florida. It's not even on this video. It's not even on the list. It didn't make it to the list because Florida is just not good with freight. But South Carolina, guys, you can pick up a lot of stuff in South Carolina, and there's a lot of points to deliver in South Carolina. And like I said before, if there isn't a place to pick up and deliver, you got very close neighboring states with huge metro areas where if you do go to South Carolina, you're just not going to get stuck in a dead zone. At number 2, guys, we got the state of Illinois. Now, it only made to the list because it's like one of the number 1 states for freight because of Chicago. That Chicago area, Gary, Indiana, they haul a lot of steel, they haul a lot of dry goods. They got freight coming in from airplanes, they got freight coming in from Lake Michigan out of cargo ships, you name it. Illinois is good because they have even steel coming from the middle of Illinois. You got equipment being delivered. You can pick up a lot of freight, especially from Chicago. That's where most of the companies exist in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where a lot of trucks go to pick up and deliver freight, especially picking you up, because that's a main hub, and that's one of the main lanes that most companies run on because it gives them the most profit. The only downfall of Illinois, guys, is the fact that there's a lot of tollways. But if you know what you're doing, you can make a lot of money hauling freight out of Illinois because Illinois is a central hub. A lot of companies from Illinois go to like Seattle, Washington. They go to New York City, which I don't recommend ever going, and they go to Los Angeles. And one run lane that I did, for example, was from Chicago to Spartanburg or Spartanburg to Chicago. It was a really good paying run. You would go to Chicago, pick up some transmission parts on the way back to South Carolina, and it gives you a good payday. But that was back about 2.5 years ago when I did drive-in, and at that time that was good money. They were getting $2 to $2.50 a mile. And you got to think about it. Fuel at that time was like $2 a gallon. And guys, the number 1 state is Texas. You might be surprised, like, why Texas? Like, if you go there, it's a dead zone. No, it's not. You just got to look for it. The main problem of Texas, guys, is there's a lot of hotshot drivers. They do a lot of hotshots, pick up a lot of partials, pick up a lot of loads that semi-trucks pick up, and they pay them less because they can afford to haul it less because they're not a full-size semi. But in my experience, Texas has high speed limits. Scales are almost always closed. They usually never bother you. It is wide open roads, less traffic unless you're in the metro areas, and there's always freight. You can always haul equipment to Texas. You can pick up equipment out of Texas. There's drive-in goods. There's reefer goods to pick up and deliver. Because on one side of Texas, it's like farmland. And Texas, if you're ever stuck in Texas in a dead zone, unless you really want to go home, Texas is so big that you can drive 2 days and not be out of Texas, basically. You would be like considered over the road being in the state which would be considered local. That's how big Texas is. Like, for example, one time I got stuck in Texas and I'm like a company driver getting percentage of load. I thought I'd be stuck and I won't be moving for a couple days because there's no freight. But guess what? We picked up loads that were 700 miles, 500 to 700 miles away from each other in the state of Texas. And we were making money doing loads within the state. So if you guys ever get stuck in there, don't panic because Texas always has freight. It's such a huge state. It has everything, and especially the tanker industry. The only problem is a lot of these tanker drivers hauling crude oil and everything in the oil field industry, they're complaining a lot of drivers are coming in and taking the jobs and making the pay rate down, which is understandable. The more trucks there is in the area, the less the freight is going to pay. So the less there is trucks, the more the freight is going to pay. But Texas has it all. They can haul propane, they can haul crude oil, they can haul like the fuel industry, they can haul almost anything. And that's why Texas is the #1 state to haul freight. And that's it, guys. That was the top 5 states. If you like this video, hit the like button and comment down below if I should do more videos like this, because I will post them. And you don't forget to subscribe, because I post a video like every single day. And if you guys think I did well, leave me a tip through Cash App, because YouTube does not pay me enough to do these videos and to create content.
Not canceled.
Guys, I'm Eddie B.
2004
Turn right.
This particular package.
Driving attempt on the 6 Series.